And hello to everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today and seeing everyone and how important this issue is for everyone.
Yes, thanks,
Um,
Linda. Yeah, thank you. If you might just share with us, like, was there a particular human face from the documentary we just saw, and also just a couple of stories from your own experience there serving at the Presentation Learning Center?
yes, I think the faces that really stuck with me, I was sharing with the group, is the young man who was in that fire and who was brutally who had the 40 uh, immigrants die in that fire. I think that was such a tragic story, and that man is going to live with that memory for the rest of his life. How does he even go on with that? Another story that really stuck with me was the older man on the bus with with his child, explaining how he had a business. He had no reason to leave, but the drug cartels came in and were demanding and were extorting him. And it just reminded me of a situation we have at the center. We listen to hundreds of stories every day, but the one that really stuck with me is one of our students. We're going to call her Anna. Anna lived in a small town in Mexico, and she worked with her brother. Her brother owned it was a little store, a little front store. He was a very talented young man. He designed women's purses. So these were leather purses that he designed and stitched and sewed himself. He also made really fancy belts. So they had a little business, they weren't, filthy rich or bringing in the dough, but they were surviving and they were happy, and they had a new, I guess, a new drug lord and cartels come in, and they started extorting all the businesses in the area for what they call protection money. And well, he started paying some because he was having business. They were fearful of the gang because they often threatened with, burning down the small storefront if they didn't pay, or hurting some of the young girls in the family. They would rape a lot of girls in the area, and the fear was there, but they paid. And in 2019, when COVID hit, most of the stores suffered and closed, and his store was one of the stores that closed down. And they would come and harass him about the extortion. You owe money, you owe for last month, you owe for this month. And he said, look, guys, the store's closed. There's nothing I can do. It's closed. And they said, okay. They waited for him that night, and he wasn't open for business. He was just going and working on things. There was nobody out. As you remember, nobody was leaving their homes. Everything was pretty much vacant. They waited for him to leave that night, and they attacked him right outside of his um his store. His family waited for him to get home. He never came home. They drove to the store and found him stabbed 50 times. They shot him twice in the head and stole all of his merchandise in the store. So that story really hit my heart. And it's hard because now I see the sister and the mother and two younger sisters fled. They left town and they somehow ended in Los Angeles and ended up in our community. And we found them in church and welcomed them to the center. And now Anna is working with us, helping other students learn Spanish, to write Spanish. And she is just a dream to have at the center. And those are the faces that we see. And it makes me very sad that families have to leave, and families are criticized for coming and taking jobs. And these families don't want to leave their homes. They have families, they have businesses, they love their hometowns, and they're forced to leave for their own safety and for, the safety of their children. So, but that's just one of the stories I wanted to share with you, to keep a face of the immigrants that are coming into our hometowns. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Glinda. Yes, I very much appreciated my visit. As you might recall, sometime back,
Yes,
Sister Jane was still there with you to the
absolutely.
Presentation Learning Center there in Watts. It's such a caring and loving community. I just had such a sense of welcome there myself, and I just really benefited from chatting with those that you minister to and with, and thank you and Sister Catherine and all the presentation people out there walking alongside
Absolutely.
our sisters and
Thank
brothers.
you so much. Thank
Gracias,
you.
Glendy. Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Up next, we have Sister Paula. Sister Paula is a presentation sister from the Dubuque unit. She has ministered along the border in Laredo. Sister Paula is currently part of a ministry called HOME, HOME, Hispanic Outreach Ministry of Evangelization, which reaches 4 cluster parishes, including 14 towns in rural Iowa. Her congregation of presentations allowed her to move some 30 minutes away from Dubuque, where she can be more centrally accessible to the people. Sister Paula, are you there?
I'm here.
Very good,
Thank
Sister
you.
Paula. What image stayed with you from the film particularly? And I know you have a story to share yourself.
Well, the story that stayed with me was the woman who she kept saying, thank you for letting me tell my story because it relieves part of my burden. And when I was in Laredo, Catholic Charities asked religious sisters to come during COVID. So that's why I was there. And I did the ministry there for 3 weeks. But I felt that the stories needed to be told. So I asked if I could stay for 2 weeks, and I interviewed the people. I wrote their stories. Then I went back to the hotel, wrote them down in English, and then I went back to make sure that the facts were correct. And I didn't have a computer. I had to text the stories to the mother house each night. But it was so important for those stories to be told. And so I have a young woman who drew a sketch because I couldn't put the pictures in the book. So I would like to tell you the story. I named each chapter after can you get this, Emily?
Yeah, we could see it again. There you go. Show it up there. A little higher.
There, like there?
We got it. Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to tell you the story I wrote it in the first person. I enjoyed a comfortable life in Mexico with my wife, my 18-year-old son, and my daughters, ages 10 and 7. My children enjoyed playing the guitar. My son played soccer and volleyball, and my girls took ballet lessons. I have a degree in mechanical engineering, and I had my own workshop and garage, and also taught classes in auto mechanics. My wife had a job in a local factory. A month ago, I was kidnapped by members of a cartel. There were 20 of them, and they tortured me with a large metal pipe for 24 hours. They took turns beating me until they were tired, and also used the end of a rifle to beat me in the head. When they were tired, they dropped me in the street, thinking I wouldn't survive. They took my phone, my car, my credit card. My son found me and immediately called an ambulance, which transported me to a private hospital. My whole family came and stayed with me. My head had to be stitched up, and my legs were so badly damaged by the beatings that I couldn't walk. The hospital took pictures on my wife's phone of the marks left on my body by the torture. It took a week before I was ready to travel. The hospital bill was $3,000, and since my wife worked and they hadn't taken her money, she could pay the bill. A friend of ours who was keeping watch in the parking lot told us that the cartel was waiting for us to leave. I still was not able to walk because of the damage to my legs, so I was in a wheelchair. With help from a nurse, a friend of ours was able to sneak my family out a different way. We stayed at a hotel for 3 weeks, and my wife used the last money that she had to pay the hotel bill of $1,800. At this point, I lost all hope. I did my own personal therapy, physical therapy at the hotel, and took the steps instead of the elevator to strengthen my legs. When we left there, my legs were still very weak, but at least I could walk. Since we had depleted the money my wife had, we had to rely on our families. They wired us money so we could go to the border. For all of us to ride the bus, it was $300. When we got to the border town and got off the bus, I could see a group of the cartel not even a half block away. There was nowhere to go, and I could not run. And now they had my whole family. The men noticed that I was trembling, and they took my whole family aside and spent a half hour questioning us. They finally let us go. We found a taxi and went directly to the bridge. Mexican immigration authorities told us to get a taxi and told us where a shelter was because there was no use waiting there. When we arrived at the shelter, we were told it was full. I pleaded with them to just let my family enter for 10 minutes because I needed to make some phone calls. I was told there were people who had been waiting a year to pass through to the United States. The blessing was that Doctors Without Borders was working out of this shelter. Since I was weak and obviously distraught from my second meeting with the cartel, a psychologist came to talk to me, and a nurse talked to my wife. They gave me something to help me sleep and allowed my family to sleep on the floor of the patio. The next morning, the doctors checked all of us, and a man from a different agency took me to make copies of all my documents and presented me to an immigration lawyer to review my case. While I was gone from the shelter, a man left the shelter with his family to do some shopping. They were all kidnapped. Those in charge at the shelter gave everyone a strict warning to stay in the shelter unless accompanied by one of them. The immigration lawyer took my whole family for a COVID test, and thankfully we were all negative. The lawyer then took us directly to the bridge, even though the day before we were told the wait could be a year. We had no choice but to leave, and I am only alive by the grace of God. We don't have a court date yet, but I am hoping that when the officials see the pictures of my body after I was tortured, they will give us political asylum. To return to my country would be a death sentence.
Thank you very much, Sister Paula, for sharing with us
You're welcome.
the plight of that gentleman and his family. Thank you for your ministry in Laredo and in rural Iowa, and for your presentation, compassion, and passion.
Thank you.
Sister Juliana is a presentation sister with the New Windsor, New York unit. She has ministered along the border in Nogales. Sister is a member of the Greater Newburgh Interfaith Coalition there in New York and helped to start a committee called Protecting Our Latino Sisters and Brothers. The purpose is to get together as many different organizations as possible to present a united front. They offer Know Your Rights workshops and distribute the Red Card. She has been interviewed by local newspapers and TV stations, and her goal is to change the narrative about our immigrant sisters and brothers. Sister Juliana, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, thank you very much for your ministry. Please share with us a story or two from your experiences along the border or there in the New York State, putting a human face on our sisters and brothers.
Thank you for having me tonight. I want to start by saying that during the 6 year that I served in Marangani, a small village in the South Andean in the mountains of Peru, my heart truly began to understand the meaning of a poverty that cries out to God for justice. 2 years ago, I volunteered in Nogales, Mexico, where I witnessed how poverty and violence force people into a poverty that cries out to God for justice. The movie we just finished viewing portrayed the reality I witnessed in Nogales, Mexico. People had left their home and carried only what they could put in their backpack because of poverty, but mostly because of the violence created by the organized crime members who arrived at the farms and claimed their land. The only option for the people were to give up their land, to work for the organized crime, to be killed, or to leave. If a person owns a business, one of the person at the, remember at the trains, at the bus say that, if a person owns a business, have a job, a money quota needs to be paid to the organized crime. The only option are to pay the quota or to be killed and have your children taken away from you or to leave the country. The organized crime declares quota as protection money. Anyone who has a small business is bullied into paying a weekly or a monthly fee. Sometimes this is more what they earn. I'd like to share 2 stories that were told to me. Bob, 43, Sally, 36 years old, Mary, 16, Anna, 10, Joshua, 3 months, from Guatemala. 2 men came to their house asking to be paid the quota or to give them Mary, their oldest daughter. She was not home at that time. The men told her that told the family that if Mary was not turned over to them, they will come back, kill Bob and Sally, and take all their children. A second story, Annalisa, 36 years old, daughter 15, Johanna, 12, Raymond, 9, from Guerrero, Mexico. Daughter, the 15-year-old girl, was kidnapped while in school. Her parents paid the ransom. Her husband went to the local authority and filed a complaint. The following day, he went to work and did not return. A few days later, his body was found execution style. Annalisa, fearing for the life of her family, gathered her children along with what they could carry and left town. The people that I met at Nogales, Mexico, had many trades and professions. Among them were plumbers, electricians, teachers, psychologists, farmers, entrepreneurs. I interviewed close to 90 families during my time in Nogales, Mexico. What I learned that everyone had in common is that people are leaving because they are afraid of the organized crime. They do not want to leave home, but they do not want to be part of them. They are hoping to come to the United States to work and to find a safe and a better place for themselves and their children. The same way that all of us, all our ancestors came. They all want to come to the United States legally, but that is impossible. As I said, I have seen the poverty that cries out to God for justice. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you.
Many thanks, Sister Juliana. Thank you for your witness thank you for your walking alongside those folks. And thank you for your sharing with us this evening. I want to thank all of our panelists and for each of you who extended your hearts to their stories as we put a human face on our immigrant sisters and brothers. My real goal for this evening, as I know all of you don't have too hard a time putting a human face on our immigrant brothers and sisters, but it seems like maybe some of our fellow Catholics might struggle with that. So I think this is an excellent resource, this film. It's timely. It's perfect to show like in our parishes. I would strongly encourage you to go to the website of the film. You'll see the link there at the top of your resource page, and it's very, very affordable. And the producer, we've worked with her, right, Emily, a couple of times on the phone. She's very, very nice. They're happy and excited to share the film with you. So I would really encourage this to be shown far and wide. And we're going to send you as well. Emily's going to email you both our opening meditation and our closing reflection we're about to hear. So that might assist you if you wish to use those resources, if you show the film further in parishes or with other groups.
And I think if I could interrupt a minute, Emily also has the link if people would like. I've written 3 books, the border one, another one on women from Chicago, and the first one is out of print, but Emily has the website that you can go to if you'd like to order the stories. Thank you.
Thanks for that reminder, Sister Paula. Yes, we'll make sure that's in the next edition of the resources for sure. Please support the Dubuque Presentation Sisters. Thank you, Sister Paula, for your great work. For our closing meditation, this was inspired by 2 separate sources, but I guess nothing's really separate. One was the film we just saw, and the second inspiration was Pope Francis. You may recall just a part in the film, or probably not. There were so many lovely faces there and testimony. One person said, "The perspective can change dramatically when we broaden our view." And I'm sure all of you are fans of Pope Francis. He calls us in Laudato Si to respond to both interrelated cries, the cry of earth and the cry of those made poor. So for our closing meditation, I invite you just to hold your hand in front of the screen there and touch your thumb, either your right or left thumb, to your middle finger. Just hold them together just like this. And spread your arms wide. Spread your arms all the way out, holding your thumb to your middle finger. And Emily's going to put the meditation up on the screen, I believe. If your arms get tired, you can set them down for a second. Okay, hold your arms back out. The name of this meditation is Where Do I End? Where do I end and earth begin? Do I end here at the tip of the nail on my middle finger? Or does my identity extend further? How far? And who is the other? Is there another in an interconnected world? In such a world, tell me, just who is the other? What if we saw ourselves as one with those others? Don't we breathe in the same earth? Are not we all nourished by a common home? Don't we all excrete earth? What if I saw myself as one with earth's waterways and airways? One with earth's ecosystems and earth's soil? What if all people are one? What if we saw ourselves as part of earth? What if we treated earth and all people as if they are ourself? Where do I end and earth begin?